Welcome, Acolytes. This is a video that got recommended to me, Slop News Network. Presumably, he does a very good job of actually explaining the entirety of PirateSoftware's career, or not the entirety. It's PirateSoftware Part 1, yeah. It's Part 1 of 2 or more, I don't know. Right now there isn't anything else up, but this presumably is something very good or made in a very good way. So I'm just actually excited about this one because at the end of the day, as everybody else, I dislike PirateSoftware, even though I protected him with the World of Warcraft stuff because, well, if a roach does roach things in a roach guild, well, is it a roach? But irrelevant. Afterwards, he actually effed up so many times that it's just, unhuman. It's just, what the F, man. What the fuck? And yet, people still watch him, so that's that.
All right, so I'm sure many of you have heard of Jason Thor Hall, better known online as PirateSoftware, due to all the surrounding drama related to Stop Killing Games. This video isn't about the Stop Killing Games drama. I do support the Stop Killing Games initiative, and anyone in the EU currently watching this should go and sign up to care about game preservation. This video is going to be a review of Jason's job history, game dev industry claims, coding ability, and his Heartbound and Champion of Breakfast DRM solutions by me, a developer. I won't be touching on his hacking skills much in this video, since from what I found, all of his DEF CON wins were team efforts, and all of the stories related to hacking are just that, stories. Outside of his word, I generally can't find anything related to it. There isn't anything concrete.
And by the way, he's a known liar, so you just can't take his word for it, Jason's word for it. So it's just, benefit of the doubt and such, but if you know that somebody lies, just accept it.
Or of substance in these stories for me to actually analyze and review. If anyone knows where he actually has hacking write-ups or knows the VODs where he actually does something related to hacking, let me know and I can do a separate video going through and reviewing it. Okay, with that out of the way, let's start with Jason's LinkedIn job history. So if we look at his LinkedIn, we can see his first recorded job experience is from 2002 to 2009, where he was a freelance security researcher and developer. In 2002, Jason would have been 15, and from what I found, he hasn't taken any program classes, so anything he knows at this point is largely self-taught. Another important thing is Jason actually had a job in 2004 that isn't listed here as a quality assurance intern at Blizzard.
I went to Blizzard in 2004, and this is kind of my whole career, right? My first job I got through nepotism, 100%. My dad worked at Blizzard for 23 years. He worked at Blizzard for 23 years, so I got a job there in 2004. I was shit. I was shit at this, and I realized I was shit.
Also, I think it's important that we talk about his dad for a second. Jason says his dad just worked at Blizzard, but that's grossly understating his dad's role and history at Blizzard. Jason's dad is Joey Ray Hall, and from a Reddit AMA his dad held, we can see the following. Joey Ray joined Silicon and Synapses in 1991. Now, you might be asking what's...
Wait, what the frick? His father is one of the founders of Blizzard then. Yeah, because the guys of this actually founded, if I recall, maybe I'm wrong. But
Silicon and Synapses, and what does this have to do with Blizzard in his post? Well, in 1991, Blizzard didn't exist yet. Silicon and Synapses was the original company name, and 1991 was the year it was founded. Joey Ray joined Blizzard before it was Blizzard, and when he joined, there were less than 10 people in total at the company. He wasn't some random Blizzard employee. He was one of the earliest hires at the company. Over his 23 years, he did all sorts of work, and was the one that founded the cinematic team, led the machinima team, the video and post-production team, and the esports live broadcast team, plus being responsible for all the video content for every BlizzCon between 2005 to 2014.
To be fair, then he did a good job. Because the World of Warcraft cinematics or the Blizzard cinematics were freaking legendary. So kudos to this man for his job at that point. As I said, the freaking cinematics were awesome. And you cannot, to a certain point, let's just say it like that. I don't remember exactly if this was exactly when he was in charge, but I think everybody can remember some Warcraft and World of Warcraft cinematics. Most people
Plus,
can.
He led the team that made the famous South Park World of Warcraft episode and the inspiration for the He Who Has No Life character. Joey Ray was the director of cinematics at Blizzard. He wasn't some low-level employee that worked at the company. He was pretty high up in the chain. Anyways, back to Jason.
The next 5 years, I left Blizzard. I did not...
What do you mean? He was one of the founders. this isn't a normal Nepo freaking thing. This is like a Nepo apocalypse destruction thing. This dude, like PirateSoftware, he could probably do what the F he wanted and nobody could touch him. This was a guaranteed, I am free to do what I want thing. It's, what the F?
Not reapply, and I went and worked on my own. I did freelance. For everything. So I actually went into Second Life, which is a 3D Worlds game, if you've never played it before. They have a language in it called Linden Scripting Language, and I made games in there. I learned how to do 3D modeling. I learned how to do texture work. I learned how to do scripting. I learned how to engage with people that were playing my games. I learned how to do network model stuff. I learned how to do server-related stuff. I did this for 5 whole years.
So Jason's Second Life period of time is a huge rabbit hole, and there's like 5 or 6 different controversies surrounding his time in Second Life. This video isn't about his controversies and allegations, so I'm going to skip over most of it. The only small parts we care about are related to coding. During his Second Life playing time, he played a character known as Moldavia's Fig Tree and started a company called Dark Spear Creations. He claims he did game program with the Linden scripting language, the programming language of Second Life, and made some small games and some user-generated content for Second Life. While digging into this, I didn't find any proof he coded any games. What Dark Spear Creations and his company was actually doing at the time was creating not safe for work adult furry avatars and selling them. Basically, his friend Wingless Emote, another Second Life player, would do the art and modeling for the furry avatars, and Jason would do some coding on top. What kind of coding he did on top of these avatars isn't exactly clear. Then they would sell the avatars, and eventually the business was making somewhere around $10,000 a month, primarily due to selling these avatars. There's some...
I mean, that's some good money. Let's be honest here. Selling furry PON is seemingly pretty profitable. So, what can I say to that?
Other controversy where it alludes to Jason trying to do dev work on Linden Labs projects and other game worlds, but I can't find any solid proof, just random posts and accusations. So in summary, there doesn't seem to be any proof he did any kind of game development or hacking during this period of time. Let's get back to Jason.
Then I came back to Blizzard in 2009 and I applied, not having his help in any way. I got the job.
Okay, the timeline here...
If you are in the company, your dad is one of the freaking founders of the company, of course you're gonna have a easier... It doesn't matter if you already worked there, when you reapplied, your dad is still the founder of it. What the fuck? This is like coping to a highest degree. Okay, acolytes, if you wanna learn cope, here PirateSoftware. This is just... incredible.
Starts matching up with his LinkedIn. After his little detour with Dark Spear Creations and working for himself, Jason now has an actual full-time job at Blizzard in 2009. This is his first official full-time job at Blizzard, and he is once again a quality assurance analyst. Jason claims he got into the company on his own merits this time, but I find that a bit hard to believe at face value. In 2004, he said he was terrible at his QA role, and that's why he quit. I searched to see if he studied anything IT related in high school or in college or during the time gap, and I found this from his subreddit. Jason did spend some time in college studying to be an entomologist with a specialization in ants. He dropped out of college without ever finishing his studies, and it doesn't seem like he ever took any IT related courses during this time here. During that 5-year gap between 2004 and 2009, the only experience he said in the clip from earlier was his Second Life programming, and well, that wasn't exactly quality assurance or hacking or game development work. Plus, while applying in 2009, on his resume he would probably have had, or Blizzard itself would have had, a record he worked there previously as a QA. So that would make applying a second time for a similar position easier. His dad, once again, was a pretty high person in the company, and some people might remember Jason being Joey Ray's son from before. It's not impossible he got in on his own merits, just a bit hard to believe considering he doesn't have experience with any real program languages at this point.
No, realistically this didn't happen on his own merits. It's just, if it was a normal worker that not everybody in the company knows, okay, the chances are a bit better. But not the founder. No.
And he doesn't have any degrees or certificates. Okay, back to his LinkedIn and his job. So he held the role for 3 years and 2 months, and once again, this was his quality assurance role. One thing Jason often does is he claims all QA are developers. First, as someone that has worked QA myself, this isn't true. I'm not saying QA aren't important, but the majority of QA generally are non-technical, and only a small portion are. At most of the places I worked at, QA generally has no coding ability and are tasked with doing manual regression testing. Basically, they get a series of test cases they need to go through, and each test case has a written out set of instructions instructions they just follow. If something doesn't match the case steps, then a bug is filed and actual developers are tasked with addressing it. So I personally wouldn't call his 3 years at this position game development experience. And if we look at the bullet points he has on his LinkedIn, besides one line, namely the design and create an automated system, there's nothing here that even remotely implies he was coding or doing any kind of development. I'm making this point since Jason often claims he was a game developer at Blizzard for 7 years, but his first 3.5 years didn't include any developer roles. Also, to address his if QA didn't do their jobs, games wouldn't be released argument, most games have music. If a musician doesn't complete the OST, a game can't be released. Does that mean they're now developers too? Just because you say something confidently in a deep voice doesn't make it true. Moving on to his next role, we have quality assurance hacks. Here he mentions he did some forensic analysis and detected threats. Also, something I'd like to note, all of his game projects listed here were coded using primarily the C++ programming language. This is a low-level programming language. This will be important a bit later in the video. As for the role, again, I wouldn't call this game development experience. This is more related to security work than game development itself. And from the bullet points, it doesn't seem like Jason was doing much coding. His next role for 6 months was test engineer. My opinions are pretty much the same as the previous role he held. Moving on, we have the next role as security engineer for 11 months. This one is interesting. Since the bullet points here notes he managed web application security, for those that don't know what web applications are, it means he was working on websites and not games. There's no mention of programming here or what tools and languages he used. But regardless, this is without a doubt a non-game development role and doesn't have any overlap with game development. Okay, next up.
The claims, actually, if I think about it, the claims that he does, or that he says he did over the years, it just doesn't add up. To master everything at a degree that he claims, he would need way longer. And I don't think that PirateSoftware is 40. Except you were like a wunderkind or something like that, then maybe. But he's not. He's just not.
Up, he moves to another security engineer role for 3 months. Again, same opinions as his
fair enough. Okay.
Last job. Now, his last role at Blizzard was a red team member. Red team is a common IT term that just means someone inside the company that attempts to hack into their systems, either digital or physical. So Red Hats basically try to make hacks and show how they got access. So these vulnerabilities and issues can be addressed before real hackers can abuse them. Now, while Red Hat is offensive security and hacking, it doesn't always mean you're programming like you see with those green terminals and pics. If we look at the bullet points Jason has listed, we can see he did exploiting physical access controls and social engineering operations. Yeah. Social engineering is actually one of the most common ways hackers gain access to systems, and it doesn't have to involve any programming at all. Social engineering attacks are something like the following situation. Let's say Jason in this example is a social engineer, and his target is a fellow Blizzard employee with access to the game servers. He could call them or email them from a legitimate Blizzard phone number or email and say he needs their account credentials. Normally, you would never share live in production account credentials, even if someone from your own company. But let's say Jason manages to convince the employee to hand the credentials over. Now Jason has a way to log into the system he shouldn't have access to. This is a social engineering attack. It's not technical hacking like most people think of. It's generally just being convincing enough and getting employees to hand over info or access they shouldn't be giving out. All right, with all of that, and with all those jobs, we have 6 years and 6 months at Blizzard full-time for Jason. And if we...
That actually makes sense, because, let's be honest here, PirateSoftware is good at social engineering. Or how to manipulate social events, so he knows his stuff if it comes to that. This explains the entire thing. This is the freaking thing that actually says, now I understand why he does the things he does. And the thing is, it works. It works beautifully. At least for now. I mean, at one point, as I hope, or what I think will happen will be, that Jason will go the way of the Alol cow. But until then, we can actually expect that he is somewhat respected. How the F are people like this just so popular on the internet? Like, come on. I understand that everybody has a different thing where they look at things differently. I mean, I'm one of those liches that just... Let's just say morally I stand in a pretty grey place. But nonetheless, I wouldn't lie. Why would I lie? I wouldn't manipulate people to actually get what I want. Or in a way where I know that I manipulate people, just say it like that. I won't make them feel bad. I won't make them, even if I print some t-shirts, I won't do a we only have 1,000 of those, let's just do this. No, I would do you have this and this time, or I would make a generous time of I have to look into it, what a generous time is, and then be like, okay, you can get it or pre-order it, and if it's done, it's done. Like, just just chill about it. But I don't know.
We include his time as a QA intern in 2004. We basically have his 7 years of experience at Blizzard accounted for. Judging by everything he has written here, it seems as though he's never held an actual game developer position and he's never done any game development directly. All of his roles at Blizzard were either QA, website security, or social engineering, basically his hacking. It doesn't seem...
I mean, the thing is, you can see on his own game that he never held a game developer job. He can't even really game develop. I don't remember what is his game. Yeah, he's gonna go into it anyway, with high probability. But the game isn't still finished after 7 years. Like, come on, brother. There are other games with solo devs, by the way. Yeah, because PirateSoftware actually has people that work on the game with him. So this little shitty indie game, I just don't know how the F it's still not out, but hey. It's basically a scam, what I want to say with this. It's basically
like he's ever touched C++, which is the industry standard language to use when doing game development. But before I finish my thoughts on this, let's check out one more job after Blizzard. After Blizzard, Jason worked at Amazon Games for 8 months as an automation engineer. Again, he wasn't a game developer here. He also didn't include much information under his bullet points. He did documentation of vulnerabilities and did some automation work with Python. This is the first officially recorded line that actually shows he did some programming. Python is what we call a high-level language, meaning the language is designed to be easy for humans to read and understand as well as to write. Python is a wonderful language, and I'm not throwing any shade at it, but Python is not a language used to create games. Technically, yes, you can code games in Python. Big drawback is it's an incredibly slow language. This is why the industry standard language for game development is C++, a low-level language that allows for incredible performance. The trade-off is it's a significantly more difficult language to work with. The reason I went through his job history so far and his programming language list is because Jason often claims he's a 20-year veteran of the game dev industry, and he was a game developer at Blizzard for 7 years, and he uses these claims to make himself seem like an authority and expert on game development and game-related topics, namely stop killing games. But from the looks of it, and in my opinion, it doesn't seem to me he's ever worked as an actual game developer within the industry, and it doesn't seem like he's ever done much program work in the industry either. I'm not throwing shade at any of the jobs listed here so far. I'm just trying to be absolutely clear that none of this, in my opinion, as someone that has worked on game engines and done game development, none of this counts as game development experience, with a lot of his roles having absolutely nothing to do with game development itself at all. To help make this clear, here's another example to help everyone understand. It's like someone working at a hospital and doing payroll work, but because they're at a hospital, they claim to be a qualified doctor. It doesn't make any sense. Jason is making a giant leap with his I'm a game developer for 7 years at Blizzard claims. Anyways, let's go back to his LinkedIn and see what's next. Here we have that he was a cybersecurity specialist at Eagle Research Group. Based on Jason's stories, this should be when and where he was technically working for the government. There isn't a whole lot of information here, and with most of the bullet points being extremely generic. Since he claims this was government-related work, I think it's perfectly reasonable to assume he has NDAs, or he might not be able to give any specifics related to his work here.
And then when I did that, I went to the United States Department of Energy and I hacked power plants for the federal government.
Jason makes a lot of claims being a hacker and has told a lot of stories, but I could never find anything to back up his hacking claims. So far, the only thing I found was he did do some social engineering attacks at Blizzard. Now, some of you might know about his DEF CON stories and his Mr. Robot claims. I'll probably cover those in a separate video. The reason is all of his DEF CON wins were done in teams of 10 people, never solo. And for his other hacking claims, there's only stories to go off of. To keep this video from being too long and off topic, I'll save his hacking claims for its own thing. Okay, his next set of experience is at his own company, also named PirateSoftware. But before we touch on that, let's talk about his more recent job experience at Off-Brand Games first, since that's a smaller topic to cover. Off-Brand Games is a game publishing company founded by Ludwig and Jason. I'm not entirely sure if Jason is a co-founder or not. Jason claims he isn't, but most posts and Ludwig's posts talking about the company seem to imply he is.
Yeah, if you're... that's... If you're doing stuff with Ludwig, That's shady at best. I didn't know that. No, Ludwig is such a spineless freaking snake. Okay.
Whether or not he's a co-founder isn't too important. Jason's role at the company is director of strategy. From Jason's comments on the matter, he basically helps indie game developers negotiate contracts. Again, no direct game development work here. Also, fun fact, the very first game Off-Brand Games was co-publishing was Rivals of Nether 2. A game by the developer's own words was built this time around as a more live service game. Really makes you think why you might not want Stop Killing Games to succeed. Also, don't throw any hate at Rivals of Nether 2. They actually do have an end-of-life plan to keep the game playable and alive for the community after it ends. The same goes for the rest of the off-brand published games. Don't throw them any hate. Okay, we're going to take just one more detour before we get to the Pirate Software company. Let's check out Jason's GitHub and see if there's any code for us to review there. For those of you that don't know what GitHub is, it's basically the site where developers store their code bases and development teams can work together on a code base. In Jason's case, his code bases would be tied to his games. Okay, so here's Jason's GitHub account, and he has 0 public projects on his account and 0 activity for the year of 2025. Okay, the no public repos doesn't exactly prove anything, and you don't need to have public repos, but most active developers do have something at least. Also, let me point out, GitHub does have an option of having private repos, which are code bases not viewable by users not part of the team. But GitHub also has the option to show activity on private repos on your profile without leaking any private repo data. Again, this doesn't prove anything, but it's incredibly odd to see a self-proclaimed developer and hacker have 0 public code on his GitHub and 0 activity on his account. Let's try 2024, and there's nothing. Okay, 2023, oh, I see some activity, and it's bug reports. He has made 4 bug reports and some feature requests, 0 coding to review for 2023. Okay, let's try 2022. All right, I see 2 green dots. And again, it's 2 bug reports, no code to check over. All right, 2021, I'm feeling lucky, and there's nothing. Okay, 2020, he's applying to be a part of the live coders list. All right, last year to check, 2019, and his only activity is he joined January 13, 2019. Man, that was disappointing. Over 7 years of having a GitHub account, he seems to have done 0 public coding, with a grand total of 6 bug reports. Again, this doesn't prove anything too much, but most professional developers and hackers generally have something on their accounts, even if it's just super minor stuff like their settings for their favorite text editor or application. Jason could have a separate personal account where he does all his work, but the entire thing is just incredibly strange and unusual. Just about every tech YouTuber and streamer has a GitHub account with some random projects scattered around. Anyways, finally, with all those positions,
but I just don't believe that he, PirateSoftware, with his gigantic ego, would have a separate account where he does this stuff on his own time and doesn't glaze about it. No, this is something that his ego just would not allow. No way. But it's also a pretty big, show up, or a pretty good point of showing, he's shade.
And GitHub stuff out of the way, let's finally get to PirateSoftware, the company, and Jason's actual game development start. Let's take a look at his game dev skills, his game dev execution. With all his bragging, I'm sure this is going to be an incredible story with no issues at all. All right, so his first game his studio published was a game called Champions of Breakfast. This was a game roughly built in 8 months in the Game Maker engine. This was the first game that Jason claimed had the unpiratable DRM, where basically the game's Steam achievements acted as a save file. I'll touch on all these points again in just a bit, keep them in mind, while I move to his next and only other game, Heartbound. So Heartbound is the big game PirateSoftware is known for, and it has a crazy development history. So according to the wiki, Heartbound's first build was October 7th, 2015. Again, this game was also made in Game Maker. It's a 2D game that's mostly story-driven with extreme similarities to Undertale, and is supposed to have 5 acts or chapters in total.
Come on, it's an Undertale clone. It's not even... I don't even care if it's an Undertale clone, because Undertale was a good game from what I can hear. I never played it myself, so there's that. But going from the popularity, yes, it was very popular. And the thing is, acolytes, if something's popular, there will be clones of it. Simple as that. But not finishing this clone until... for F's sake, it's 10 years. Yeah. I am starting, by the way, with the first build. It's 10 years. It's still not finished. Or let me look it up. Heart. Give me a second. Heart. Heartbound. Still in early access. After 10 years. And if you don't believe me, give me a second. I'm gonna show you. Oh, there it is. Here. After 10 years of development, yes, I am including the 2015 first coming out with this. This game still isn't out. And if you want to be like, okay, no, I mean, let's take the release date. Good, fair enough. December 2018. Let's be generous. December is the end of the year. Let's get 2019. Fair enough. Those are still 6 years and 6 months where this little shitty indie game isn't done. With a team of people. Be it a small team, but it's still not done. So don't give me any bollocks about it that this isn't a scam. I am so freaking... I am just... After seeing everything with this game, with the person that does this entire thing, I'm not gonna say that it is a scam, but it pretty much quacks, screams, and runs like a scam. I hope not, by the way. I really hope it's not, but right now, it doesn't look good.
A Kickstarter for the game was launched on February 24th, 2017, roughly a year and a half after work originally started on it. The original goal was to have the game finished and released by December 2017, but shortly after the launch, it was claimed the game was to be fully complete and released in early to mid-2018. A few months later, the goal was once again changed and now is targeting early access on Steam in December 2018. The game did land on Steam in December of 2018. In early access, this release contained a Chapter 1 that was complete, with a basically near fully done Chapter 2. Gee, I hope this doesn't become a trend with delays, failed promises, and shifts in goals. Surely Jason will complete this game in a few more years, right? At the very start of January 2019, they released a patch where in the patch notes it said Animus, the name of Chapter 3, was being developed. And this is where everything started truly going to hell. Now, we have a few things we should note here. This is technically the third year of development if we're going off the October 2015 first build date. If we compare this to Undertale, Undertale completed development in 2 years, 7 months, with Toby Fox doing most of the development solo, with some help from Tammy Chang on art. Also, let's just take a quick look at the How Long to Beat site and see how much content Undertale has. Okay, the main story is 7 hours. With side content, it's roughly 11 hours. A completionist run is 20 and a half hours. Okay, pretty good and respectable times for an indie game built in 2 years, 7 months. Heartbound, as of 2025, is still in active development. So let's take a look at how much content time they have. All right, the main story is 2.5 hours. With side content, it's 3 hours, and a completionist run is 3.5 hours. The PirateSoftware team has been working on this game for 10 years, currently more than 3 times as long as the Undertale team, and the PirateSoftware team has 1 additional team member. Yeah, just think about that for a moment. Anyways, let's start diving through 2019 and Chapter 3 Animus development. For most of 2019, it seems like there was steady progress on Chapter 3, with various patches over the year, so far saying additional content was added. On October 2019, Jason tweeted that roughly 86% of Chapter 3 has now been completed. Then 2 years later, Jason tweets that Chapter 3 is now 92% done. So over 2 years, he made 8% progress on 1 chapter. 20 years of game dev industry experience, people, and 7 years working at Blizzard. Okay, let's rewind and go back to 2020 and see the Twitch statistics and see what was happening. Okay, the start of 2020 up till March seems like a normal stream schedule. Seems like he caught a cold on March 10th. Then after 9 days, he goes to urgent care and is diagnosed with pneumonia and gets a COVID test. Then we move to March 21st and COVID test results come back and it's negative. No COVID, just pneumonia. Wait, never mind. March 24th, Jason goes back to urgent care. Pneumonia was incorrectly diagnosed and he actually has severe bronchitis. Alright, March 30th, he's still sick, but once again confirms negative for COVID. This is really important. Alright, a few days later, April 10th, and his cold status is defeated and we're good to go. I know I'm being semi-joking in this section, but I generally don't wish Jason any health issues. issues. Alright, so then we move on to April 11th, 2020, and work on Heartbound has restarted. Work is continuing over the next few days. According to tweets, most of April was good, so was most of May 2020. We're still working on Heartbound at this point. Again, nearly all of the May prog is on Heartbound. Then we skip all the way over to July 2020, and work on Heartbound is still progressing. Seemed like there's some trouble during September, October, and November, with December being fine, and so is January of 2021 being fine. Then we hit February 2021, and then he tweets out he has had COVID for 9 months since the start of February of 2020. Wait, what? Jason was only sick in March according to his own tweets at that time period. And there's work from February from earlier. And there's proof he worked during April, May, June, July, and August at the very least, judging by his Twitch stats and his Steam announcements and patches for the game. It seems the only major slowdown of streams and work was 3 months of September, October, and November. Where he lost 9 months of time and had to stop development based on his tweets, I have no idea.
Yeah, this is... I think this part is proof that you honestly shouldn't believe this guy anything, or even propose that it's a force for any kind of good or something like that. He's just lying in your face. He's going out, being lazy, not fulfilling his promises, not ending his game, not accepting that he has a problem, and yet, for some reason, I mean, I can understand if somebody actually watches him to see the disaster, because it's entertaining to see people fall, but this, oof.
I mean, it's not like he's going to change his story after this, right? Oh wait, there's this old tweet from November 2020 where Jason says he was recovering for nearly 8 months and couldn't daily stream or work. Let's look at the Twitch stats graph again, and his tweets. He couldn't work during this period, but everything he posts during this time says he was working on Heartbound, and his Twitch stats confirm it. So does Steam. I mean, Jason wouldn't lie and change his story and opinions randomly, right? Especially not to his loyal viewers and Heartbound fans. Let's skim the graphs and see what else we can see. Okay, 2021, minus the months of March, April, May, and June, his streaming is extremely good and consistent, with tons of stream days going past 10 hours and some days hitting 16 hours. 2020, about the same for March, April, May, and June, and September, with the rest of the months being slightly less consistent, but still more consistent than not. Then we get to 2023, and this is incredibly consistent with the stream averages being 6 to 8 hours per day. Let's start diving back into Jason's tweets. So on June 2023, he catches COVID again. Okay, that seems to match up with his Twitch stats graph. Here there's a clear week gone. Let's see what Jason says in July.
That was a hell of a thing. That's the second time I've gotten COVID. The first time took 9 months to recover. This one took probably about, I think it was in total about 20 days. So
there's no point in time in 2020, 2021, 2022, or 2023 where he lost 9 months consecutively or stopped development for that period of time. He also in the clip claimed he got COVID twice in total. So that doesn't explain why there's 4 sections of gaps on development, since all these gaps are months apart and he only had COVID twice. Let's skip ahead to June 2024 and see what he says about these 4 years of development.
How long have you been working in this game? Was the coding a solo job? Yeah. Nobody else has touched the code base for Heartbound ever except for me. It's just me. I've been working on it for about 7 years, but I lost 2.5 years to COVID.
Okay, I hope at this point you realize his excuses for not working on Heartbound and his tweets are filled with complete BS. Once again, he stopped development.
Yes, I mean, for F's sake, even acolytes, just so you know, I was sick the last 3 weeks and still did at least 1 video a day, worked my job, and had some. I also have something on the side, like a side job that I'm doing for myself, and still. The only thing that suffered was that I didn't post 2 videos a day, just 1, until this day. Yeah, sorry, you can still do work on your freaking thing, especially if it's a game you promise to people that's still in early access and you're bragging about it for freaking years at this point. No, that's just...
In 2020, 3 months between September to October, where he had his first COVID period of inactivity. His second COVID was in June 2023. No matter how you try to arrange this and make sense of it, the numbers don't work out. Especially since we can see his 2023, he basically had a perfect stream schedule. And if we look at 2021 and 2022, there were only 2 gaps where he seems to be affected and they're months apart. Jason basically just decided to quit working on his game sometime during 2020 and has been making random excuses since then on why he hasn't made progress. Chapter 3 Animus, the reason we've been going through this chart started all the way back in January of 2019. If we look at the latest patch in 2025, work on Chapter 3 Animus is still going somehow. We have gone through 6 years of development so far, and Jason hasn't been able to complete 14% of Chapter 3. Seriously, what the hell? Remember, Undertale took 2 years, 7 months to finish the full entire game with 3 times as much content as what Heartbound is currently delivering in 2025, with 10 years of development time under its belt. To put this into even more perspective, let's look at Yandere Dev, a developer notorious for having no clue what he's doing programming-wise, and spends the majority of his day responding to emails and maybe spending a few minutes each day working on his game. He makes more progress and more consistently than Jason does. Seriously.
Oh no. Oh no. If Yandere Dev makes more progress on his game than you... Oh, you're... Acolytes, this is... There is no ego to protect anymore. There is just emptiness. If this Yandere Dev is a notorious guy that just refuses to do work. He just refuses to do anything. Oh, this is... Oh, I actually... I feel bad for PirateSoftware right now. Being... Oh, this is... No, I don't feel bad. It was a joke.
See, I'm not joking. Here's the update list for Yandere Dev starting in 2020. Yandere Dev has made more progress and more consistently at that in that year alone than Jason has in the last 5. We just might be living in a timeline where Yandere Dev finishes his game before Jason does. And yes, I might have gone slightly crazy trying to plot 6 years of Animus development with conflicting tweets and time gaps on the Twitch stats graph.
Damn.
And it's like some...
Damn. That was a pure distraction at the end. I mean... Acolytes having... I'm gonna be honest, having somebody just being worse than Yandere Dev in the game development. I mean, to be fair, to be just totally fair, Yandere Dev's game is a bit more complex than Thor's or PirateSoftware's. You just cannot compare those two to each other from the complexity, or as I see it. This is, by the way, my assumption of actually that a 2D game is not as hard to do than a 3D game. And you're just being... Oh no, you effed up. You effed up so hard. It's not even funny. But as it is, Acolytes, good night.